Hi, I'm Mai, and welcome to another episode of Christchurch from the Streets. Today we're coming to you from, well, what remains of the heart of the city.
It's about 4 years on now, and you can kind of sense that we are turning a corner. We're starting to build more than we're demolishing, aren't we?
In fact, we've demolished 909 buildings, so there's 59 to go, although that's rendered parts of the city unrecognisable.
Something that's remained is the town hall.
Yep, the mighty town hall. So you ever get to go in there?
No, I didn't, and I must say, I don't actually find the outside that appealing.
Oh, I won't have a bar of that, eh? I love this building. That's right, if not my favourite building in town. Inside this place, you walk in, it just takes your breath away. It's this huge, big wooden space. It sounds wonderful, but it's just majestic and awe-inspiring. I saw my first international concert there when I was 14. It was Billy Connolly. I ached for days, and then I've been to see bands, and I've played on the stage a bunch of times myself, and I just love this place. Right after the quakes, it was this roller coaster. It was like, no, we can't have it. It's not going to work out. You know, it's too badly damaged. Then, yes, we can fix it, and then no, it's just not going to work out. And then, yes, definitely, we can definitely fix it. And at the moment, it's more of a pragmatic kind of wait and see thing. At the heart of hearts, I really hope that this place stays because I just love it to bits. The Christchurch Town Hall was designed by New Zealand's most revered architectural team of Miles Warren and Morris Marnie. Their groundbreaking work is said to have influenced the design of town halls around the world.
Yes, I understand that any publication acoustics of concert halls, the Christchurch Town Hall and Harold Marshall are the starting point.
It changed the game.
Changed the game, yep.
It was 1972. Computers were just starting to play a role in the complex mathematics of acoustic design. Warren and Marnie teamed up with whiz-kid Kiwi acoustics engineer Harold Marshall to grow a new concept in concert halls.
Both Auckland and Wellington were all shoeboxes.
When we talk about a shoebox, we're talking about a rectangular auditorium. It has always been quite good acoustically, and by sheer chance. So everybody for many, many years has accepted that as being the best answer.
While designing the town hall, Warren and Marnie looked to Sydney and the Jørn Utzon-designed Opera House, which was plagued with weatherproofing and acoustic problems.
Can you tell us about your way of designing a town hall compared with, say, Utzon's way of doing the Sydney Opera House?
Well, they're the two opposite extremes, really, both perfectly valid. Our approach was to let the form emerge from what took place. If you let that form emerge logically, then it would be a unique and unusual building. To get the reverberation time up, the volume of the building had to be increased. Utzon's hall, confined by the shell, decreased in size and kept decreasing to a point where its volume is actually smaller than the Christchurch Town Hall. We had great fun teasing the Australians. They had to acknowledge that there's no way they can improve the acoustics of Utzon's design. The big problem with a circular oval form is that the sound, if it reflects around the oval, focuses onto the centre. So you get the most appalling sound reflections in the middle.
Harold had the concept, if you were to put certain panels in certain angles, the sounds would go where you wanted them.
It meant, so in effect, those big reflectors changed the oval shape to a rectangle.
And this was a first.
It was.
Which was only possible with the arrival of computer analysis.
Morris Marnie remembers the opening night well.
It was a transforming moment. For 4 years, we'd seen nothing else but tradesmen walking around the place. When the moment we saw a cantilevering balcony full of people, oh boy, is it going to hold up?
Yes.
This side.
Yep, this is the worst side. Concrete has actually survived very well, hasn't it? The paving's gone up and down. The building itself is an extraordinarily strong building, made so because it's got a concrete roof to prevent sound penetration in the building. It's really gutsy. I mean, look at it.
It's a fortress.
There's no timid fairy, is it? Looking at it from here, you'd think it would be a little movement at all, but it has actually risen towards the river and sunk here.
So, 12 inches.
See what I came across yesterday?
It wasn't built with city council rates, it was given by gifts from the public. Can you imagine that happening today? What puts the Christchurch Town Hall at risk is simply the extraordinary costs of the rebuild.
The costs have been banded about as 127 million, but it isn't, because that includes 69 million insurance. The upgrading that was proposed before the earthquake was estimated at 16 million. Take those away from the 127, only about 42 is extra costs.
Morris claims that to build a new concert hall of this quality today would cost at least 300 million, a far cry from the 42 million needed for repairs. Thankfully, the council have asked for tenders to see if it can be saved.
What we're doing at the moment is we're actually stripping the building out in preparation for the main contractor works, for which we're now going out for expressions of interest for.
Can you point any damage out?
You can see where the cracks in the floor, but it's mainly in the floor slab. That's where the damage is. Visibly, you can't see a great deal of damage, as a lot of the damage is below ground.
It's fantastic, isn't it?
It's quite beautiful. Because the building went down vertically, the floor slab had to follow, and it cracked the floor slab. So we ended up with water in the basement. They actually came up onto the second level here, where the old piano pit used to be. The organ itself is behind those panels. Because of the size of the organ and the number of parts, we elected to leave it in place and protect it. We've virtually completed this area, just need a good final clean, and then it'll be ready. If we get a good run at the tender and everything comes in at the right price, we could be second quarter next year.
At the current time, we appear to have a city council that is quite determined to save the town hall, and a government that's quite determined to bowl it.
It's a Christchurch decision, not a Wellington decision, isn't it?
Yes, absolutely.
Just a few blocks away from the northern corner of Cathedral Square, a new convention centre is to be built. To talk about this huge addition to the heart of Christchurch, we've brought along Barnaby Bennett, a designer, PhD candidate and co-editor of the highly regarded book Once in a Lifetime, and James Lundy, a vastly experienced urban designer. Right, hey guys, it starts here, it runs down to Armagh, across the river and right up to Worcester.
Maybe we walk that way and we'll see how big it is.
And get a feeling for it.
What exactly is the convention centre? What does it mean for Christchurch?
I think the idea with the convention centre, one that's particularly business focused, is you get a whole lot of what they call high yield visitors to the city. You get people that are in business or in their professions that come en masse and spend a whole lot of money in the middle of the city. That's the principle.
I think most of the people in New Zealand would know the term conference centre rather than convention. Convention centre is a very American idea.
Right.
So these are big companies that are having essentially a conference or a convention, and they're all getting together, and it's like
big international companies, and there are convention centres virtually in every major city in the world. Usually cities of over 1 million people.
They're usually out on the outskirts.
No, that's the strange thing. Normally you put them on the outskirts of the downtown, where land's a bit cheaper, where you can put big boxy buildings that don't really destroy the fabric of the city, and where people maybe can wander into the city afterwards. It's very rare to put it in the middle of the city.
A convention centre is dead. Right. They're usually dead spaces because it's all internal. And then people do their socialising internally, they have their drinks, they have their food, and then they go back to the hotels, get changed, and then they go out later.
Am I sensing that it's not a real city as such unless it's got a convention centre? Is that the kind of feel?
I think Florence is a pretty real city and it hasn't got one.
It doesn't?
Yeah.
All right.
I think it's become the trend now. You know, our economy's failing, what can we do? Oh, we'll have a convention centre.
I think it's more about the money that it brings into the middle of the city in terms of investment. There's now $500 million of money that's going to be built here, but you're right, long term.
They've put a video up on the CCDU website where they show you what the centre's going to look like. Let's have a look at that now, shall we?
It's a blank box blocking off the riverfront from the rest of the city.
So they're a little bit like stadiums. You can imagine when they're busy, the public aren't allowed in there because you've got to pay to go to these conferences. Right. And so it's busy, the public can't go in there. And when they're not busy, they're empty and nothing's going on.
So there's nothing there. So you actually create an empty hole. It's a donut.
So here's the convention centre.
Okay, cool.
So thunderous applause will erupt from the palms of thousands. It should be like sceptical applause will erupt from the palms of thousands.
Convenient access to hotels, yeah. The building one on site. It looks like it's designed like a large kumara basket. So we got a large kumara basket on the river.
Quite near the town hall, isn't it?
Yeah, and that's a great idea we just had. We take a little bit of the government's money, put it into the town hall, restore it while we still have the precious architect that's around there to guide it, and we extend it to be a good conference centre.
Instead of having a convention centre here?
Instead of having a convention centre here, so we actually retain some of the history,
one of the
some
things,
of the love that was in the city.
One of the things we don't know about it is it's called the Convention Centre Precinct, but there might be hotels, there might be residential, there probably will be the convention centre. It's basically a giant bit of the city that's been built by a couple of companies, but there's been no communication about whether there's any civic space, any public space.
And that's the thing, it's owned 50% by the government. We know they're investing $284 million. The others are private owners.
It's not necessarily owned by the government. They're putting in $284 million, but we don't know what they're getting for that.
Right,
they might just be buying the land and giving the money. We don't know.
What are the good things about it? Because it's going to happen, right?
Well, the good things about it are there's investment. It will bring a level of trade to the city if it's successful.
Yeah,
so
right.
we are still going.
We are still
this is
past
now
And it's
2
only
blocks.
one edge of it.
We're still going 2 blocks.
So now we're on the corner of Colombo and Armour. So Victoria Square's there with the town hall, and we've got so the convention centre goes down this whole block and along the river.
And what does it mean having a structure of this size right next to Victoria Square?
What it is a privatisation of your waterfront, your river, the whole way through here. It's a non-permeable environment. It will be policed, it will have security people, and in fact, the majority of residents in Christchurch will probably never, ever cross its thresholds and go in there.
There's no shortage of opinions in Christchurch about how the central city is faring. So we asked a few leaders in their own fields where we'll be in 5 years and how best to get there. And of course, everyone wants to tell their own tale.
My name is Rob McCormack. I'm the CEO of Harcourt's Grenadier Limited. I've been in the real estate industry for 36 years, and I'm very proud that Grenadier Real Estate has been one of the most successful franchises worldwide for the Harcourt's Group. The day before the earthquake, if I was standing exactly where I am today, I'll be standing on the top floor in my office. In February, when the big quake hit, the building was written off. I met with the architects, and within weeks we were planning our new building to be put back onto the site where we stand today. We invested $1.3 million and 18 months of blood, sweat and tears. Our goal was that we would be back on site in our new building within 12 months, and it would be the first office block or building in the red zone. It didn't happen, and the reason it didn't happen is Sarah and the government, in their wisdom, rezoned the property and it was turned into the green frame.
How did you take that?
Gutted. Gutted for about a week. The real estate industry and the business in Christchurch has got huge opportunities. Immigrants coming back into the city, the $40 billion projected to be spent. The more people we bring in to live in the city with apartments, the more vibrant the city will be. The problem we had pre-earthquake is there wasn't the population actually living in the city. The day that the bureaucrats, the civil servants, park their egos and join in and work with business leaders and business people and people that are making financial commitments where they've actually got to take the money out of their wallets and their pockets to invest, we will have a quicker, growing, developed city. And why wouldn't they want to live in the city? Because the city prices for apartments, to my mind, will be either the same, if not less, than what they are going to do when they buy in a good suburb, a similar type of building. I don't know every plan or concept for new buildings that's been developed on the inner city, but in my business, it's my job to know as many as I possibly can. And as these start to reach fruition, and the designers, the planners, the investors and the developers, the entrepreneurs, start to get these flowing and becoming on stream, Christchurch within 5 or 6 years will be the envy of New Zealand.
I'm David Shepherd, architect. We've been in the central part of Christchurch since the early 80s. After the first few earthquakes, we needed to move the office in order to repair the building. Yes. We were determined to come back and also to stay in the city. We owned a building around the corner from the office on Colombo Street. Double brick Victorian building. Our plan after the first earthquake was to repair it, and unfortunately that was not to be. The February earthquake dealt to that. The reinforcing for the parapet was due to go on today.
Oh, no.
It's sitting in the steel yard.
It's a day too late.
It's a day too late.
Do you think the building's gone?
I think so.
Yeah.
The history of all cities is that there are new buildings and old buildings. The sad thing about Christchurch is that the earthquakes have dealt to all of the older buildings without mercy. So this is what we've got to try and build in to the recovery of the city. We have another meeting room. It's exciting to come back into the building that we want to keep as a historic building. There is an obvious desire for the city to recover as soon as it can, but I believe it requires a careful balance of government and planning input and community input, where people feel happy, they want to contribute, and they have the opportunity to contribute. The problem of the city redevelopment is it is a very complex project. It requires a lot of money, which has to come from somewhere. The community can't provide it, but it's the way in which that money is brought in and shared. And if anything, it is a little bit opaque at times. There is a lot of private investment staying in the city, being put into new projects that I think bode well. It is exciting that a number of people are willing to stay in the city to help it recover.
I'm Dr. Anna Crichton and I've lived in this house for nearly 30 years. It's a heritage house and I'm a heritage advocate, chair of Historic Places Aotearoa. The house was badly damaged in the earthquake and I'm still waiting 4 years on for repairs to be done. This is where I was standing, having a cup of tea, just finishing my lunch, when this 10-tonne cast iron water tank came through the ceiling here. And I was this far from it. And I still get shivers up my spine when I think about it. I have to say the loss to Christchurch has knocked the stuffing out of me, but I'll be very strong in trying to save what we have got. Christchurch had gorgeous, gorgeous heritage buildings. We had a really good line of every possible sorts of architecture, telling our history from European settlement right through until today.
That's all gone.
All gone. Few examples left, but there's so many missing teeth. There's only a couple of good teeth left in the smile.
Did we need to lose all that?
No, we did not need to lose all that. It was panic and bad decision making. It reminds me of that famous Colin McCann painting, "Tomorrow is the same, but not as this is." And that's exactly what this city will be in 10 years' time. And hopefully it will have built into it, philosophically and tangibly, all the things that were successful pre-quake. Catering for the artists and the transients and the students, catering for the tourists and catering for the central city residents like me who live in a character area. What's happening in the central city now is that scorched earth policy, get rid of everything and start new. You can't build feeling and character and emotions new all the time. You've got to keep the old.
Is the house going to get fixed?
The house will be repaired. Plans are being drawn up now. We're both still here.
The quake's dealt to many small businesses. Their small sections have disappeared in the new city blueprint plans. Someone who has bucked that trend is High Street bar owner Johnny Moore. It's been like setting this place up.
Oh, it's been wonderful, this place. Easy compared to the last one. Been open a month now, and it's absolutely cranking, so no complaints.
What was here in the city before? Because we're
This
in the
part
heart
of the
of
city?
it. Yeah.
This was Poplar Lanes, and so probably where we're sitting was the lane that went through, and it came out Poplar Street over there with the Twisted Hop.
Right.
This was the back area of Vespa, and used to be Dolly, the Korean karaoke bar.
That's right.
The Poplar Lane area was the area that was probably the shining light of the city, and I believe a template for how it should go.
Well, how Johnny, how'd you do it? How did this come into to be?
This place here came into being by chance. The landlord of this building was my arch nemesis, and we used to have these shouting matches at each other and in each other's face because bands were always parking on his driveway and blocking his entrance while they loaded their gear in, and we had this very fraught relationship. I bumped into him on the street one day and started talking. It's funny how the earthquakes did that. All the old barriers came down and we started talking, and he said, "Oh, Sarah's just told me they're not going to acquire my building." I said, "We'll take it," sort of then and there on the spot without thinking, and went and talked with guys like Jim and my dad, and away it went.
And this is how you rebuild a city. You rebuild it business by business, building site by building site, incrementally.
When you watch with us coming in here, suddenly the site next door's appealing to someone. They're going, "We could do something there."
And this whole area already with non-commercial projects is really vibrant.
And so we've got something over there, and you know, the landlord of this side over here has been over and been like, "Oh, I think I'm going to do something now." It's finally happening. And
But with the blueprint, that is becoming increasingly more difficult. How do small businesses go up against a plan that's government-led?
That's a good question. I don't know what the answer to that is.
It's ironic, isn't it? You think that a plan should be put in place to help small businesses have stability and know what to do, but instead what it's locked them all out of the city.
And also lock small developers out of the city as well. What's happened, and for very good reasons, but the way that Sarah has operated, by purchasing all this land in the CBD, they've overinflated land values. And so I personally tried to buy a building very close to here. It was 3 times the price I'd pay in the centre of Auckland per square metre. So if it was at the real price, I'd be able to replicate this. A couple of apartments above and some retail below. That's how you get that variety in these different spaces. You don't get it by large developments.
I suppose you look at Christchurch and go, this is what was working, so how can we make
and
it
then
happen
start building
even though
from that. The other stuff wasn't working. All the big stuff didn't work. It was the little stuff that was working. And if you look at how Christchurch was built in the first place, it was built by creating a very strong grid, a very loose set of rules, and a whole lot of very small sites. And individual builders built individual buildings and quite often occupied them themselves and then let the downstairs for businesses.
I think because even at the top dollar we're paying, people can afford 100 square metres and they can get in and get involved pretty quick.
I just bought 108 square metres just off Ponsonby Road in Auckland, paid $450,000 for the site, but I can build a 5-storey building. I'm going to live in the top 2 floors, I'll rent out the next floor, and I've got a bar on the ground floor and a basement. And that's affordable on an ordinary kind of Auckland mortgage, which is not affordable, by the way.
But whoever runs the bar will be able to pay their rent with your bar tab.
They will, yeah.
I think the problem is normally it's considered that populations after disasters are going to panic, they're all going to move away, or they're going to start looting, and actually there's little evidence of that, and it definitely didn't happen in Christchurch. People were strong, they stayed, they supported each other, they started lots of businesses. I think what happened is there's another concept called elite panic, with the elites, the people that are in government panic, and I think that's what happened with the 100-day blueprint. They went, we don't know what's going to happen. We need to fill it. We need to be in complete control because that's the only way we can really predict what's going to happen.
The central city needs a long, slow-term plan, managed very carefully, and it needs to be occupied by people who love it and want to be here. And these big corporations and overseas bankers aren't going to do this. And they won't do it because it's actually got to be from the ground up. You've got to actually get the community behind the CBD, and they've got to want to come here, and they've got to want to occupy it. And it's a case of, I agree with Johnny, it's let's get the sites down as small as we can and get them as affordable as we can and see who's going to pop up to build on it. A framework is something that allows you freedom to move within. What they've created is a blueprint, and a blueprint is something that you're going to build exact. It was never meant to be a blueprint.
One of the city's larger developers is Sean Stockman. Sean's latest project has not only been about replacing what was lost, but also a labour of love.
This is Strangers Lane.
This was here pre-quake, wasn't it?
There was no lane here, there was 3 buildings here, and today we've still got 3 separate buildings. They're all a mix of hospital and office tenants. Next door to Strangers is the Bonington building, the 1883 building, which we've restored twice because during the quake, 90 tonne of Strangers building fell through the roof of it. We just wanted to re-establish what we'd lost, so we could hopefully just get back and have a life again.
I hear that at night time it's gone pretty crazy.
It has. Really good buzz and really good vibe here. This is the Lower Ninth Diner that sits next to Orleans. What do you think of that? This is Strange & Co. It's a 2-level bar. Can you believe that? 2-level bar in Christchurch, and it works. Sadly, the core won't have room for everybody, but I believe that on the fringe of the city where there's cheaper land, they'll be able to put some sort of cheaper style buildings that will be able to house the young girl with a desire to have a first fashion label or fashion shop. All those people were really interested in the old city. We'll have a different fabric now. It'll be cool, but we'll have a different fabric. If you wind the clock back to the February quake, the whole city was technically wiped out. It had a fence around it for literally 2 years. And I wouldn't have liked the task of what do you do next, because I wouldn't have known what to do. When I first saw the blueprint, I thought it was pretty bold, and now, 3 years on, you can actually see how those things are actually going to work. Wind forward 10 years, and in my opinion, it'll be a very, very tight but vibrant city.
So economically, would it have been smarter for you to go to Auckland?
On this particular development, it would have. Yeah, I had a lot of people say to me, you're mad. Financially, it doesn't stack up. All my family's here, all my friends are here, my life's here. You know?
Did you have a few sleepless nights?
No, my business partner did though. It's the first permanent building in the CBD. Because when we started building it, it was actually in the red zone. You had to get a pass and a vest and a helmet to come in here and actually look at it. This is the Vespa bar. This is the 1883 building that's restored.
How are we tonight?
You good?
Yeah, it's Thursday.
People are coming back into the city, aren't they?
People always gravitate to a city. They always gravitate to the centre. It doesn't stack up right now commercially in terms of a return, but we wanted a prominent building that was special, and that's what we've done.
Are you going to stick out for a long time or what?
Absolutely.
Thanks for your support, New Zealand On Air.